I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and we're going to take a look at the gardens at Stan Hywet Hall and Gardens today. And I'm a tour guide over there for the gardens, and so I'll conduct it more or less like that. This is F.A. and Gertrude Seiberling, who built Stan Hywet and, of course, the gardens. And this is sort of a plan of it. Here is the house over here, and we will be looking out in here. This is the great meadow. The gate is over here. We'll be coming in through an apple orchard right here, going up to the house. And then we'll look at stuff by going around this side, looking at this beautiful plane tree alley or rhododendron alley, and then we'll come into the English garden, and we'll keep working our way back and forth, and I'll show you some other maps as we go through. This is Mr. Manning, Warren Manning, and he was the landscape architect on this project. This was one of the very earliest times when the landscape architect got to say, or had an awful lot to say, about where the house would go on the grounds. Most of the time, the architect of the house said that. Now this, you're going to see some old stuff, and those will be Stan Hywet pictures, and most of the flowers and a lot of the new stuff will be my own. This is in the olden days when you went in the front gate, and this is the gatehouse over here, and it is still there. This is what it looks like today in winter time as you go in. I'm trying to show you some of the seasons at Stan Hywet also. The winter time is actually the time to see the broad expanse of lawn leading up to the great manor house. But I wanted to show you this gate, because this is done by a master ironworker, Samuel Yellen of New York City. And then I just took this picture of the gate. You can't see the gate that good, so that's why I wanted to show the separate picture, but now you see it in autumn splendor. And as you go on in, you will see the gatehouse. The gatehouse is interesting for more than one thing. This is considered one of the shrines of the Alcoholics Anonymous people, because this is where the two people who later formed Alcoholics Anonymous were introduced. They were introduced by Henrietta here in the gatehouse. They do a magnificent job of tulips and all kinds of flowers at Stan Hywet. That is still the gatehouse there, and this is a few years back, red tulips in there. And I could not believe my eyes when I got over there and kneeled down to take this picture. One little golden tulip in amongst all those red ones. But it's a real beauty spot. And we'll keep on going in now. This is how it looks like in a different season, late summer, I believe this was. And then as we make our way in, you can still look up and see the great meadow. I have to confess that one time I got a chance to go through the house, and so I have been up on the roof of the tower of the house, and that's where this picture is taken, looking back at the entrance over here. The gatehouse is in that little clump. So here's the great meadow as it looks from all the way up on top. But as you approach the house, and this is in springtime, it's just a magnificent experience going up there. Now, Mr. Warren Manning wanted you to know two things. He wanted you to know that across that broad expanse of lawn was a magnificent manor house. But he wanted you to also know that you were still out in the country. So he wound you up through an apple orchard. Now that apple orchard came on rough times, but what they did was take scions or twigs, if you will, from the old plants and grafted them onto new rootstock. And so what you see there today, and this was during the planting stage or the replanting stage, what you see there today like this is on top really the old apple trees. And so you make your way on up through them in the various seasons to get up to the parking area and the carriage house and then the great manor house. You can just barely see it up on here. When you're there in person, and I hope you go there in person, right up here on the tower you will see the only gargoyle on Stan Hywet Hall. Just a beautiful place. The motto for it, and it's right up over the top there, is "Not for us alone." Now, right around in this place is where I first start my, my walking tours. I don't start them over at the gate where I've just brought you from because there's not enough time. Start here as people come out of the house and sort of try and get them to see a lot of things. This is Chinese magnolias about 2 years ago as they were blooming in the spring. And this was this past spring, and this is a star magnolia. Right, you pass it right on the way up to the house. Now, as we go around the house, as I pointed out in the first map, I told you about an alley that we were going to look at. Now, the reason I only go in the house about 3 different times. This is the music room, and the music room lines up through those windows there with the plane tree alley. See, the music room is here, and we will line up with the plane tree alley out this way. Well, let's go ahead and line up with it. You'll have to forgive me, I'm a horticulturist, so I always throw in pictures of flowers, just sort of at random sometimes. And this is the plane tree alley. Now, the plane tree, that's the English term for it. Over in this part of the world, we normally call them sycamores. There's a slight difference, but not too much. And there are some along the side here. They have hit on hard times. A canker has really hurt them. So they're going to have to take those out and start over. In the meantime, somebody has sort of rededicated it by calling it the rhododendron alley. Now I have gone all the way down to the end of it, and I'm taking a picture back up. Right in the middle, beyond those people, right there is the music room. These were all taken this past spring, and they are magnificent. We're in the year 1999, so it's this past spring. Now I'm about halfway down, walking back towards the music room. And these are rhododendron. Almost back to the music room. Now, I don't get a chance to take my people out into this area, but since I'm doing it with pictures, I thought I would. These people are walking down that alley that we just went, and many of them don't realize that there's a little tunnel right under it that you can get back over into this area that we call the dell. This sort of naturalistic woods here, right very close by the manor house and the English garden, but woody and not developed other than this little old piece of lawn here. And going back some time, Virginia Seibling's wedding on October the 19th, October of 1919 was held here in the Dell. And of course, this is an old picture of that wedding. And this is the area. Back in this area, or just up in that part of it, I've seen as many as 5 deer in the Stan Hywet grounds. I have been told that somebody has seen as many as 14 at one time. They try to get them to leave and go into the metro parks, but it's hard to tell deer what to do. Now we're going into the English garden. This was to be a secret garden. It still has a little bit of growing to do of the rhododendron and stuff so that you don't see anything of the garden until you're walking through this gate. This is a lynch gate. Lynch gate is used in English graveyards. The idea being that if it's raining, the pallbearers can stop with the casket under the roof of the lynch gate until the weather is better. But this one leads you into a beautiful English garden. Now restorations, when they are underway at Stan Hywet, are normally back to about 1915 or so. But here, this is the restoration back to the 1929 design. Mrs. Seiberling did not like Warren Manning's design, or colors, I guess it was mainly, in her English garden. And he suggested that she call in Mrs. Ellen Shipman. Mrs. Ellen Shipman was one of the foremost designers of small gardens in America. And so this is a Shipman garden. This is the only one that you can really see in the country. And she does quite a good job. This is Mrs. Seiberling, Gertrude Seiberling, in her beloved English garden. And this is what it looked like when they were doing the replanting. See, it had become overgrown, and all down in here it had huge trees that had made it a shade garden when Ellen Shipman designed it as a sun garden. So they went all over the country and into other places as well, I'm sure, to find the varieties. In some cases, all they could find was the species, to replant it exactly like Ellen Shipman had designed it, and they still have that design. As a matter of fact, you can see it yourself as you walk inside the Lynch Gate. You can see the design itself. This is Taxus wadi here. That's one of the yews, and it only grows to about 3 feet, but I believe they're keeping it a little below the 3 feet here in the English garden. Another one of what seemed to have been Ellen Shipman's trademark is right here in the foreground and right down in here. She used bricks and turf to make her steps. This is just a real lovely place, and it's really beautiful at any season. And it's a place of contemplation and so forth. I've seen people sitting out here having brushed the snow aside to just sit in the English garden. A couple of the statues, I'm behind them there. Unfortunately, those 2 statues need a little work. And this fountain statue is called the Garden of the Water Goddess. There are about 3,300 perennials and bulbs in this little garden, and it's quite a job to keep it going, but they do a pretty good job with it. Now we have come up out of the English garden, and yes, you come up on steps to get to the West Terrace, and we're right on the corner of the Manor House, one of the corners of the Manor House. That picture that you just saw of the azaleas was taken right on this corner here. And that was the English garden here. This is the West Terrace here, and we'll be looking at that. And then here's the Birch Alley here. The Japanese garden is down here, and this is a vista point out here, and we'll see some more of those. And while I have it on a map, I wanted to point out that this is Pleasure Drive. I'll show you a picture of it later on, and that is where they would use a horse and carriage to take their visitors around for a ride in the country, so to speak. See, it used to be about 3,000 acres, Stan Hywet grounds, but it's down to about 70 acres now. Now what we have here, I want to show you a vista, and it will be through the Great Hall right here. Here's the entrance. This is where you saw the people milling around, and I told you that that's where I started my tours. I want to show you what it looks like right on through here. Now, that all depends on whether the doors are open through the Great Hall and all. They aren't always, but my picture will be from over in here and then another one from down in here. This is the Great Hall, and the picture will be through this, on this plane right through here. That's the first one. That was taken by somebody at Stan Hywet. Now I have my back to the vista point now, looking back at it. This is the doorway to the Great Hall. I'm up on the roof now looking at that fountain, and the vista point goes right through there. Incidentally, this is the Japanese garden down in here. I just added this picture to the slide, to the show, in order to give you a little bit of autumn. In that little pond there. And then there's that vista right on through. There are 4 vistas at Stan Hywet. And along that wall by the Japanese garden, a number of things sitting there. Then you can see sites like this on the outside of the house, and then I went on the inside and took this picture. This is the perennial borders. Those plants that were sitting on the wall were sitting on this same wall, but on down in there. And this is the perennial borders here and here. Now, in wintertime, it looks kind of barren like that. Actually, it's early spring. These peonies wouldn't be coming up yet, but just barely spring. And sometimes you know, the hollyhocks come along pretty good. But I was over there photographing and got these 2 pictures. That side of the perennial border and these iris. Those were photographed in spring of 1999. And here's Mrs. Seiberling out at that vista point. Looks a little overcast in the distance there, but sometimes you can get it pretty good. I got it pretty good this fall, looking over the fountain and right on out. And that's all West Akron out there, and you don't even see a single house. All you see is trees. And here it is from closer. Just a real beauty spot. Now, before we go into the Japanese garden, I wanted to show you this picture. This is a Stan Hywet picture. And through those doors is the place where they kept wine to cure And in this, this is also the entrance to the cistern. The cistern was water off of the roof and so forth. It was a 200,000 gallon cistern. And the Japanese garden is built right on top of that cistern. Now we're going to look at a few flowers here, and then we're going to head into the Japanese garden. This is what it looked like when it was first planted. Actually, they brought another man in to work on this, Mr. Atsuka. And he is the one that was familiar with Japanese gardens. Now, the mood in a Japanese garden is quietness and tranquility. Now, it was understandable that a Japanese garden would be put as one of the gardens of Stan Hywet, because Japan had been opened up at this time, and a number of things had moved over into Europe, and a number of objects had been brought into the United States. So it was natural that the Seiblings would want a Japanese garden, and we are just entering into it now. Now, the Japanese garden that you see here is, in a word, overgrown. I like it myself, but it is overgrown because Japanese gardens, all the objects are usually fairly small. That lantern that you see there was given by the people of Japan to the people of Akron. And John Seibling, who was born in the tower of the main house and lived in the gatehouse, he was our congressman, and he saw to it that this gift from the Japanese people to Akron got placed at Stan Hywet in the Japanese garden. Pretty good move. These are sort of a spreading or weeping hemlock as we make our way back into there. And also on that bench, and those benches, and back in this area in general, I've seen people at all kinds of seasons just taking in what's there. And this is the gateway going out of it. Now, there are some steps that you can go down right by that gateway, and you would get down into this area. And I told you I would show you Pleasure Drive. This is Pleasure Drive. Now, we have been down in here, and we're coming back up to here. There's a vista point out here, and there's a vista point here and here. The one we have seen so far is out that way. This is the lagoon area. This is the rose garden, and then this is the birch alley. We're looking down that lawn area from the west terrace. Just, well, actually not more than a week ago, I took the picture. We've had a beautiful fall this year. And this is the view out towards the Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area. If you go beyond that ridge, then you're probably in the National Recreation Area. You'll see more of it in the next vista. These four vistas were dedicated to Joyce King, who died a few years ago, and she was the head of the Board of Trustees and did a tremendous amount of work for Stan Hywet. The reason for that last picture, quite often when I'm walking with a group, I'll tell them every once in a while stop and look up at the roof line of this magnificent manor house. It really is something. Now, we're at the breakfast garden right up against the house. This is the breakfast room over in here. The little statue, I don't know much about. It's a copy of one in Florence, Italy. And this is the area of the breakfast garden. Actually, those two azaleas are probably considered outside of it. And because of the color in the breakfast room, the blooming plants here have to be yellow to gold, blue to purple, or white. Those are the only colors. Now, out in here is called the elliptic garden. Elliptical garden, I suppose. This is an old picture of Mr. Sebring having breakfast in that same breakfast room. And because they could see from the breakfast room over to that elliptical garden, I've taken you over there now when the tulips are blooming. And this is a favorite place for the deer to come in and munch on tulips. They just seem to love to eat Stan Hywet tulips. But all in all, you can see quite a few tulips in the springtime at this magnificent place. Later on, this is what the beds look like. They keep changing as the seasons change and the gardeners get time to work with them. And this is that beautiful forsythia blooming at its prime as you go down into the sort of the brick well to the bottom part of the manor house. And then the rose garden. And here's the rose garden down here, and I'm up on the tower again, taking that picture. Incidentally, here's where the orchard used to be, and down in through here are the cutting gardens. We'll talk about those in a few moments. Here, somebody from Stan Hywet got this picture when the roses were at their peak one year. In 1999, the roses were not very good at Stan Hywet, but normally they're really something to see. And I have a few pictures I took of close-ups in previous years. Now we're going to look at the Birch Alley, and see, this is the music room over here. This is the entrance. This is the house, incidentally. And here is the linen fold hallway. And then it just lines up with this going out this way, and that will be the Birch Alley. Out where the people are at the end, on either side, in a few moments, you will see the tea houses. These are English white birch. They're the original root. This is one of the few places at Stan Hywet where they use poisons. They have systemic poison in these. Birch is very subject to borers, and that's the only way that they know how to control them. But it's quite a sight, that Birch Alley. And then I was over there in the springtime. I wanted all blue sky, but I got blue sky with clouds to show you what the alley looked like from out on the lawn of the West Terrace side. And while I was over there, I'm very close to the lagoons at this point, and the narcissus were blooming there at that time. And these are called fiddleheads. This is the starting point of a fern coming up. And they got that name because they look like the top of a fiddle. And you have to take your animals, other than deer, you take your animals where you can find them at Stan Hywet. This little chipmunk just sat there. Over again by the lagoons. Looking back at the house from pretty close to where I took that picture of the chipmunk. Then back in the lagoon area, Stan Hywet got its name from stone quarry. And there was a stone quarried here. But a lot of the stone, the natural stone at Stan Hywet, is Sharon conglomerate. And that's not a building stone. The stone that's in the house all came from Indiana and Illinois. But the lagoons back here are a beauty spot, and Mr. Manning took full advantage of them. Some of these, like this one, were just taken within the last couple of weeks, just to show you what autumn is like there. This is an oldie. They were swimming in those lagoons. I've even seen a picture, an old picture of a canoe or a boat on the lagoons. And then they also ice skated on the lagoons in wintertime. That was taken by somebody at